When you think of an MGM theme park, the first thought that comes into most people's mind is Disney MGM Studios. That park, though, was neither ran or had any input from MGM themselves. Instead, seeing the success of a movie-based theme park, MGM decided to open one themselves. The MGM Grand Adventures theme park in Las Vegas, which didn't even operate for 10 years. Welcome back to Expedition Extinct.
The MGM theme park took several years to build and is the biggest family attraction in Las Vegas.
During the early 1990s, Las Vegas was attempted to become a more family-friendly destination and add reasons for parents to bring their kids along with them, with MGM planning the Grand Resort, which was to include the large hotel, casino, and theme park.
So it's only fitting that a city of pyramids, palaces, and castles would be the new home of our 5,000-room kingdom. Complete with a magical Emerald City, a 15,000-seat event center, even a 33-acre theme park.
The theme park, however, was more of an extra, expecting not to bring in a large revenue, and at best was expected to break even. It was built essentially out of a need rather than a want. The resort, though, was a big deal, the grandest, largest hotel in the world, and it was a billion-dollar project. MGM Grand Adventures was designed by Dual Corporation. Dual Corporation were involved in the creation of multiple theme parks throughout the world, including 5 Six Flags parks, Hershey Parks, Carowinds, and even the very first tram tour at Universal Studios. Paul Stillman Limited worked in conjunction with Dual Corporation as the park's architect and interior designer. Opening on October 18th, 1993 with the rest of the resort complex, the park itself was located on land adjacent to the hotel. 33 acres of land to be more specific, which is pretty small for a theme park. The smallest Disney park, Disney's California Adventure, is 55 acres, and that's considered small. And in comparison, Universal Studios Florida is 125 acres. So yeah, it was pretty small. For such a small park though, it was crammed with 8 themed areas, none of which were large, but were thoroughly themed. The areas included movie set quality facades to immerse you into those areas. Rides were located throughout and a lagoon was in the center, which featured a counter-service food location called the Cotton Blossom Riverboat. At the time, the lobby of the MGM Grand Hotel had a Wizard of Oz theme, and guests literally could follow a yellow brick road to the entrance of the theme park. The entrance area was Moroccan themed and featured your typical theme park entrance offerings.
Hey everybody, we'd like you to meet our friends King Louie, Louie Jr. and Lucy, Wacky Wolf, and of course Popeye, Olive Oil, and Rudolph.
The mascot for the park was King Louie, a kid-friendly version of the resort's overall mascot, Leo the Lion. While his presence decreased over the years, he was very prominent at the park's opening. The second section of the park was New York Street. It was the largest themed section of the park, and New York Street seems to be a staple among movie-based theme parks. The area featured a selection of shops and food locations, as well as one ride and a large theatre. The King Louie Theatre could seat 650 guests, and the original show was called Reaching for Gold, an ice skating and gymnastics show. It was renamed the Manhattan Theatre in 1995 and showed a circus act. The ride within New York Street was called Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt was really the only roller coaster the park had during the entire park existence. When it first opened, it took guests on a speeding adventure through outer space. The block run for the ride featured a model of the Vegas Strip showing you had returned to Earth. The ride only existed here from 1993 until 1997 until it was moved, but more on that later. The Asian Village section of MGM Grand Adventures was pretty small, and just made up of a few facades. It contained 2 rides though, and 1 food location. While the area was small, it featured some of the most unique and elaborate attractions in the park. The first of these rides was ahead of its time, Deep Earth Exploration. The opening of this ride was delayed and it actually opened 4 months after the park. The ride combined a motion-based simulator with physical sets, while the ride vehicle moved along a track. This was long before Spider-Man or Indiana Jones Adventure existed and would do something similar. Designed by Intamin again, the ride was delayed for a rework of the design inside the attraction. R&R Creative was brought in to rework the queue, scenery and lighting. The ride itself, you would board the Gopher 1 and take a voyage deep inside the Earth's core. A video screen at the front showed your descent, and windows would open each time you arrived at a new physical set, deeper into the ground. A very similar attraction actually opened at Disney's Tokyo Sea in 2001 called Journey into the Center of the Earth. The other major attraction in the Asian village was the Backlot River Tour. If you imagine a combination of the Jaws ride with the Great Movie Ride, then this is what you would get.
I'd like to take you folks on a tour of the Backlot River area. As we leave our set being prepared for River Trader, we're going to head out to the backlot here.
Unlike other movie-based parks though, MGM Grand Adventure didn't feature rides based on actual movies, for budgetary reasons. R&R Creative designed the boat ride based on these generic movie genres. R&R was also the company that worked on Jaws the Ride at Universal Studios Florida. The Jaws ride in Orlando had a huge amount of issues when it opened in 1990. Universal essentially scrapped the entire ride and rebuilt it from scratch. Only parts of the original ride would remain, and guess who snapped up those Intamin-based boats which were put up for sale? The MGM Grand Adventure Park. The ride would feature these boats on a 6.5 minute journey through different movie sets such as swamp creatures, a Civil War era set, the Temple of Gloom, not to be confused with the Temple of Doom, an indoor set with a volcanic disaster. The most impressive scene was called Jungle Storm, a scene which featured fire and explosions around the boat as a helicopter battle was happening. The next area, French Street, was so small it featured a couple of retail and food locations and the Parisian taxis bumper cars, one of the only attractions to actually exist for the whole time the park was opening. Another small area was the Salem waterfront, but there were no witches here. Located along the central lagoon, the area featured the park's traditional dark ride, the Haunted Mine. The theme of the dark ride was Indian tribe based and featured a curse. Classic dark ride stuff. Tumbleweed Gulch was a traditional Old West themed section of the park and was later renamed Gold Rush Junction. It featured the Over the Edge Flume ride, which featured 2 drops, the highest of which was 40 feet high. The ride had a sawmill theme. This area also featured a show called You're in the Movies. Guests were drawn from the audience, costumed and given script. The performances would then be combined with pre-filmed scenes. Also here was the Rio Grande Cantina, an outdoor stage and beer garden which was mostly used for private events. When the park size was reduced, the cantina was demolished and the Lightning Bolt roller coaster moved here, no longer inside a show building. The ride opened exactly as it was before, but was now outside. It was closed again shortly after, and the ride was lengthened and a second lift hill was added. The duration of the roller coaster actually doubled. Also added in 1996 was Sky Screamer.
3, 2, 1, fly.
Cool. MGM Grand Adventures. Park admission included with purchase of a Skyscreamer flight.
Which at the time was the tallest sky coaster in the world at 250 feet and was also an upcharge attraction. This ride existed until the park closed, and it was actually later relocated to Fun Spot America in Orlando after 8 years in storage. New Orleans Street contained 2 shows and 1 ride. The Magic Screen Theatre featured many different shows within, including a Kaleidoscope show, a Three Stooges show, as well as a Beatles tribute act in 1997. New Orleans Street ride was the Grand Canyon Rapids, which for some reason was located in the New Orleans area. I'm not sure it's actually that close to the Grand Canyon though. The ride was the largest in the park in terms of size and budget, and took up a great deal of space. A river rapid ride created by Intamin and featured rich theming throughout, with different show scenes such as a bank robbery and over 50 life-size characters and props throughout. The most immersive river rapid ride ever created at the time. The Dynamite finale was especially impressive. One of the other highlights of the park was the Dueling Pirates Stunt Spectacular, which took place in the 950-seat Pirate Cover Theatre. The show's plot focused on Jake the First Mate as he battled to free a princess from some bad pirates. The stage featured a large ship and castle-style background, and was actually a pretty darn good show as far as stunt shows go. The final themed area was Old England Street. It didn't feature any rides or attractions though, but had different food and retail shops completing our full circle of the park. So what happened to this park? Well, when planning the park, it was aiming to limit the number of admission tickets to 10,000 per day to maximise the guest's experience while charging a premium price. Attendance though on opening didn't reach the expected demand anyway, and instead of adding new attractions, they decided they would try and increase it by adding special holiday events, both Halloween and Christmas. From 1994 to 1997, the park was renamed to Scream Park each October for Halloween.
Let's see your hands.
Pair of bases?
I'm out.
Out.
Out. I'm out.
I'm in. Deal with it. It's the stakes. Dead man's hand.
Because MGM Grand Adventures is turning into a Scream Park. Scream Park 2. The nightmare continues.
Hey, this guy needs a drink.
In 1996, just 3 years after opening, the park was reduced in size drastically by about 40% to accommodate the MGM Grand's new pool area and the $60 million convention center they were opening. Deep Earth Exploration and the Backlot River Tour were both closed. The new lazy river in the pool system is actually called the Backlot River, so there's a throwback for you. The Manhattan Theatre was also closed, as well as the Haunted Mine ride. Not for any reason, as the space wasn't used in the resort's expansion anyway. 1997 saw the addition of several carnival-style rides, including a Ferris wheel. Smaller rides continued to be added, and the park began only operating seasonally from 1998. In 2000, MGM admitted they had other plans for the land, and by summer 2000, the park had only 19 acres of land left within it. By October that year, the park's rides were listed for sale, and the park's closure had still not even been announced. The rides didn't sell though, and the park reopened in 2001 with a new name, The Park at MGM Grand. It wasn't open to the public, but only for business and special events of over 50 guests. The only attractions still operating were Skyscreamer, Lightning Bolt, and the bumper cars. 2002 saw MGM announce that the Signature would be built on much of the land that was left within the park, 3 40-story condo towers. The park officially closed for good on Memorial Day in 2002 after a private event, a shell of the original park that opened less than 10 years ago. Many different reasons were thrown around for the reason why the park failed. A lack of exciting rides and low attendance due to the high ticket prices, which started at $25 in 1993 for non-resort guests and went down over the years following that. And also the fact that most of the visitors had come from California, which already had better theme parks there. Currently, the land it used to sit on is now a Top Golf, as well as the Signature by MGM Condos. A few of the rides were reused at a small theme park in Fresno, California called Granite Park, but the park failed and a lot of those rides ended up just being scrapped, including Lightning Bolt. Overall, this park was a huge failure, offering some great immersive rides for only a couple of years before they were removed. With a different focus over the years and the addition of thrill rides, I personally believe that this idea would have been a big hit and could even still work today. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Expedition Extinct. If you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.